You know, I love a lot of gaming franchises, but one family-friendly franchise that I've always loved is the LEGO franchise. Ever since LEGO Star Wars 2 on the PSP, I've played virtually every handheld LEGO game to date, and I have yet to find one I did not like. So, with a new LEGO Ninjago game on the horizon, I'm ready to do a review, and now with the new LEGO Ninjago game coming to the Nintendo Switch as the handheld version, I can do a review. So, here is my review of the Nintendo Switch version of the LEGO Ninjago movie video game. First thing you need to know about the story is that LEGO Ninjago movie takes place in the LEGO Cinematic Universe, meaning that it is not a continuation of the TV series. It is, in essence, a reboot of Ninjago set in the same universe as the LEGO movie and the LEGO Batman movie. Now, the actual plot of the movie is around LEGO Ninjago City, which is constantly under siege by the villain Garmadon and his army of minions and giant robots and monsters. And he is constantly repelled by a group of color-coordinated ninjas and their giant mechs. And then he comes back and tries again, is repelled again, and the cycle continues. You know, I didn't really see a Power Ranger feel with the TV series, but here, the first half of the movie is just, actually the entire movie is just Power Rangers. It feels way more Power Rangers than LEGO Ninjago. Now, the story isn't bad, but it's also not great. It's got some cute comic relief moments, especially when that giant cat comes and starts destroying the city. But really, this is more of a serious LEGO story, especially with the second half of it. By gameplay, LEGO Ninjago Movie is a 3D beat-em-up game with puzzle elements. So, you know, typical LEGO formula that's been around since LEGO Star Wars. The main difference between this and other LEGO games is that this game takes on the open world idea in a very different way. If you remember LEGO Marvel's Avengers, even on the 3DS and the PS Vita, that game had a giant sandbox New York City. You could spend literal hours upon hours exploring, finding collectibles, doing side quests. This game doesn't really have anything on that level. There are a lot of hub worlds where you can do occasional side quests when you clear story missions, but really the exploration is definitely at a minimum compared to some of those other home console LEGO games. Now, when you're actually in missions, it's really typical LEGO stuff. You're running around a 3D arena with a party, beating up enemies, solving light puzzles, and going through a fairly linear path towards your objective to see more of the story. LEGO Ninjago Movie has a very fast-paced combat system. Now, while this does sound like the same old formula you're used to, the combat actually is enhanced and is very fast-paced. First of all, there are a lot of flashy moves that you can do that really just increases the speed of everything going on. And there's also the fact that LEGO Ninjago Movie is not as much of a button masher. You have a lot of enemies that will constantly guard and require very specific attacks to get past their defenses. So you can't just run into a group of enemies and mash the Y button over and over and over again and expect to win. And the only other unique point about the game is how you gain upgrades. In many LEGO games, you have all of your abilities from the get-go. Your character can do everything. In LEGO Ninjago, there's a skill tree. Every time you complete a certain story objective, you gain a collectible that you can use to purchase upgrades for all of your different abilities. So this is kind of a deviation from typical LEGO formula. Now let's talk about length. Before I finished the game, I was told that you could 100% complete this game in less than 6 hours. That sounds really, really short for a $60 game. The good news is that's not true. The bad news is it's still not very long. If you want to only do story mode, as in you don't do any of the side quests or any of the races or any of that, the story itself will take you around 7 to 8 hours, as it did with me. The only problem is that doing all the other side stuff is probably only going to add about 4 hours to that total. Now, for a LEGO game, 10 to 12 hours isn't awful, But when you're spending $60 on a game you're barely going to get 10 hours out of doing everything you can possibly do, you really have to think about whether that's worth it. Even Lego City Undercover was, what, $50, and it had 30 to 40 plus hours of content. Now let's talk about presentation. Visually, the game looks wonderful. The visuals look pretty much flawless. Even the realistic cat in the levels looks pretty realistic in the game. Performance and glitchiness are what we really need to talk about with presentation. First, frame rate. The Lego Ninjago movie video game stays at a pretty stable frame rate for most of the game. It sticks around 30, probably 80-90% of the time. There are some segments, especially the on-rails shooting segments, that do drop in the mid-20s. And there's one beach segment I played that dropped well under 20 and was really, really hard to play. Now, next is load times. Every time you go to a new major area, expect to be waiting for quite a while. I timed these load times and they're all about a minute each. So when you finish one story mission and you need to go to the beach area or the volcano area, you're going to be waiting at least 60 seconds for that area to load. And the final two are crashing and audio problems. First, crashing. When I first downloaded the game, it was downloaded onto a micro SD card. And every single time I loaded the game, it crashed. And even after I re-downloaded it, every single time, it crashed. Everything else on the SD card was working properly, like Zelda and Mighty Gunvolt Burst. Just Lego Ninjago. Thankfully, if you download the game onto your system's storage, everything should be fine. And audio issues. This game has typical audio sync issues on all its cutscenes, but a few of the cutscenes have no voice audio at all. You can read the subtitles, but the voice audio just doesn't play for some reason, especially in the final cutscene of the game. Now let's talk about battery life. This being a 3D game, we can expect it to be on the low end of the spectrum, but let's get into specifics. Here are my times from 100% to 0%. Maximum brightness with Wi-Fi on, 2 hours and 46 minutes. Maximum brightness with Wi-Fi off, 2 hours and 50 minutes. Lowest brightness with the Wi-Fi on, 3 hours and 8 minutes. And lowest brightness with the Wi-Fi off, 3 hours and 34 minutes. Now this is what I would call not great, but not terrible. You'll be able to get around 3 hours on average settings. Since this game does not require Wi-Fi, just turn the Wi-Fi off and your range will go from 2 hours and 50 minutes to 3 hours and 34 minutes. Now in conclusion, the Lego Ninjago movie game is a fast and fun beat-em-up experience to go along with its movie counterpart. Unfortunately, the experience is bogged down by many technical and length-based issues. It'll be well worth the price when it's cheaper, but 10 to 12 hours for doing everything is really hard to justify $60 for. Reviews to Go rates the Lego Ninjago movie video game a 6.5 out of 10. And on that score, let's do a breakdown so you know exactly how I got that score. First, short length, lost 1 point. The frame rate issues lost 1 point. The load time issues lost 1 point. And the audio issues lost 0.5 points. So as you can see here in this little chart, this is how I got my score, and if you guys like these breakdowns, I will be including them in all future reviews. If you have any more questions or comments, leave them below or head to the website at www.reviewstogo.com.